Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got 4 replays in the Japanese Independent Alliance Era 1 Tech Tree Medium Tank, the Type 61B. Now if you do like the video, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe down below as it really does help out the channel. And yes, the Type 61B, it is the middle Era 1 vehicle for the new Japanese Tech Tree line that's come out in Cold War. What's it like as a tank? Well, it's a fairly mobile vehicle when you get it fully upgraded. For clarity, this first replay is completely stock, which you are a little bit slower. The gun's fairly similar to the entry Era 1 vehicle, the STA-3, but you fire a little bit quicker, and technically, the gun is actually a little bit better as well. You have no real armour though, so you definitely are that support medium tank that you want to play the role of not really being in people's faces, and being in that position where you can shoot from distance, support your enemy team, or sorry, your team as you push the enemy team. Don't support the enemy team, that'll be bad time. But yeah, so you can support your team as they push the enemy and not be the focal point of people's attention, because you will die very, very quickly. You want to put yourself in a good position, use the great DPM of this vehicle to just farm up if you can. Now the thing with this gun is that it didn't feel too bad on the STA-3. Occasionally it would miss shots. The Type 61, it was horrible. Honestly, I did not enjoy playing through this tank because the gun felt disgustingly bad at times. It snaps shots that you think, oh, I hit that nice, but there's so many shots that drop low that you sit there going, why did that miss? That is the Type 61 in a nutshell, that you sit there missing shots that you really, really shouldn't, and it happens far more often than it really should do in this vehicle. It can be just so frustrating. I found the tank just generally really frustrating to play through, and I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest, and it's one of those that I do thank the Lord that it's a pretty quick grind. I got through it in 9 games with the 2x booster. That was it. It really didn't take long at all to get through to the STB1. But that's the Era 1 grinds in general, since they did all the XP and silver reworks. It doesn't take long to grind through a vehicle whatsoever in this era. But the Type 61B, it has a top speed of 45 kilometers an hour when it is stock, like you're seeing. So that is the only real major upgrade that you feel when you do end up getting fully upgraded. You have a slightly slower reload and slightly worse accuracy, but when you get fully upgraded, the differences are fairly minor. So this tank, when you do get it fully upgraded, you have a 60.5 km/h top speed with the build that I run, 27.5 km/h reverse speed, which is very, very nice mobility. It still feels a little bit sluggish to get up to that top speed, so it might be one that you might want to drop the traction system and run the powertrain instead, just to get that extra horsepower in the engine to be able to get up to that top speed a bit easier. 17.36 horsepower per ton ratio means that you do get there, it just, for some reason, it feels fairly sluggish. And it's not the ground resistances that hold the tank back whatsoever, because they are fantastic. You've got 57.55 degrees a second on the hull rotation speed, which, again, it turns on a sixpence very, very fast, this vehicle, which is very nice. You've got 515 meters of view range, which is the same as the STA-3, so you spot for yourself decently. 41.35 degrees a second on the turret rotation speed is way slower than the tracks, so be careful of that with this vehicle. The same as the STA-3, if you turn to the left and try and keep your gun focused on a tank on the right, the turret will not keep up and it will end up missing its shot if you're trying to do that. You've got 0.46 accuracy during rotation with a 1.39 accuracy during movement, which is very, very good. It keeps the aim circle bloom down really, really low, meaning that it's pretty much always fully aimed. And with a 1.75 second aim time on the Type 61 Mod B, you aim in really quickly, even if it does bloom out that little bit. You've got 10 degrees of gun depression, which is exceptionally flexible on this vehicle, meaning you are very good on a ridgeline, and it's kind of where you want to be in this tank, so you're limiting the amount of tank that people have to shoot on you. You've got 0.25 accuracy at 100 meters, which is supremely accurate for the vehicle, which is very, very nice, with a 4.23 second reload, which is 3.4k DPM, which is phenomenal DPM. You absolutely shred when you get this thing fully kitted out. With 219 penetration on the standard AP and 320 pen on the heat rounds, it's exactly the same as the STA-3, so you get no real upgrade in the gun, which is always a little bit sad for progression, for the feel of progression, that is. And that's something I feel like this tech tree is going to have, is that you don't feel the step up on some tanks. You feel like you're playing another version of the same tank because the statistics are so, so similar. This vehicle is, in terms of the gun and the performance, feels no real different from the STA-3. In fact, it feels derpier, which is a little bit annoying at times. But the mobility is what you feel the step up in, because you do get that 60 kilometers an hour top speed. That is more mobile than the STA3. That's the kind of step up that you have. And then obviously when you get to the STB1, you get the 390 Alpha, and again, that's where you start to feel a bit of a jump in the vehicle. But in terms of the penetration, it's exactly the same. The damage is the same. So you've got 219 pen on the AP, 320 on the heat, 940 meters a second shell velocity on the standard AP, and 1216 on the premium heat round, which means the heat round does fire and travel faster. Or should I say, it travels faster. It doesn't fire faster. It travels faster than the AP round, meaning you don't have to give quite as much lead to hit your targets at distance. But on the whole, the Type 61B, like I say, I didn't really enjoy grinding through it, to be honest, and the gun was a big factor in that, and just the derpy feeling of it. So what do I run in terms of recurring equipment? Well, fairly similar to the STA3. The Born Leader, Rapid Reload, 6th Sense, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Track Mechanic, Clutch Braking, Rapid Aim, the Advanced Loader, Gun Stabilizer, Traction System. Like I say, with the Traction System to get to that 60 kilometers an hour top speed, you could quite happily drop that and run the powertrain instead, just to get that extra oomph in the old engine. You've got the Gun Stabilizer to get the accuracy during movement and rotation down as low as possible, so that this gun is always ready to aim. That's the kind of shot I'm talking about, by the way. You want the Advanced Loader to make the best out of the reload. All 3 gun perks to try and make this gun somewhat usable, with the Clutch Braking and the Rapid Aim just to help the general feeling of the tank. So it makes it turn quicker and makes the turret traverse quicker as well. Just generally makes every MBT in Cold War, that kind of crew, feel that general all-round improvement in its game. So you're seeing this second replay we're here on this map, which is Fredvang. The first replay, like I say, was stock, which there's the differences between stock and full upgrade on this vehicle are very minute. And to be honest, like I say, if you use a 2x booster, it took me 1 to 2 games to be fully upgraded. There is no real... It doesn't take long at all, to be fair. The Type 61B did it fully upgraded. And so we're on the second replay, and we're now fully upgraded in this vehicle. We are going to charge towards the enemy vehicles a little bit. We're up to 1654 damage, and we're getting into a position where maybe we can shoot down at the guys that we were shooting at GF0, and we're actually in a good position to shoot at the IS-3M. Sadly, that shot misses, which I was fully convinced would hit, but apparently not. And we're just seeing if the IS-3 or the Tyran was going to poke out into position we could shoot them, but they can't quite be seen by us because of the ridge lines. So instead we're going to push up onto this STB1 in front of us and see if we can put the pressure on him and the AMX-30 as well that is directly in front, because, well, we just want to get rid of them because they're starting to farm our team. Now this is going to be a bit awkward. The AMX-30 is a lot easier to pen than the STB1 because the turret on the STB1 can be a bit awkward. So we're just going to keep the DPM flowing, the shots going into the AMX-30. Now he's run off though, I'm going to try and focus on getting a shot or 2 into this STB. But he didn't poke up like I thought he was going to do, so we get a shot into the AMX-30, go for that cupola, and that goes to the moon with that ricochet. That was a surprising one. We get a shot into the STB1's cupola, who turns away from us. And again, we're just looking for that cupola shot, but we hit the top of his turret and we ricochet. He has absolutely no problem penning us. It's a bit of a problem for the Type 61 Mod B that, again, you have no real armor, so it's very easy to pen. And when you're coming over a ridge line, like this against something like the STB1, you have a giant machine gun port on the turret, which means that when you are coming over a ridge line, you've got a large target for the enemy vehicles to be able to shoot and pen very easily before you ever get your gun on target. So it's something just to be careful of with the Type 61B, that you're going to give an obviously easy weak point to hit before you ever get the chance to get a shot at the enemy vehicle. So we're up to 3.6k damage, and we are going to try and push ourselves towards the cap. There's a TD at D2, and a medium tank and a heavy tank at E34 that should quite easily get shots and get back to defend the cap. So I'm pretty unconcerned about them capping, to be honest. And because we've got that good top speed at 60 kilometers an hour, especially going downhill, we're going to get the speed to be able to get back there quick enough to try and reset and just defend the cap. I'm starting to get a little bit worried at this point though, because the cap isn't actually... Oh, there we go, it gets reset. The cap isn't getting reset much at all though, so that's making me think that maybe the same people are being reset constantly and not the one with all the cap points. Because the one thing you need to know when you're resetting a cap is not to just... If there's 3 people in a cap, don't shoot the same tank over and over again. You need to shoot each individual tank to reset their cap points, and that's the best way to get full resets on a cap. But here we are, we've got underneath the gun line, we go for the shot into the upper plate of the M46A1, and of course, the shot went straight wide, straight into his tracks and did track damage only, which reset, sure, but it also just didn't pen the M46A1 and meant we took a hit for that. But we get a shot in to shut down the FV101. There's only one tank left on the team. It is the STB. Put a shot towards his upper plate and 219 pen ricochets, although that thing's got no real armor, so it's quite surprising that I did bounce that. He's put down to a possible one-shot, and in fact, we don't roll high enough. Put him down to a one-shot for the STA3 next to me, and we finished the game with a pretty decent total there for the Type 61B. Finish with the victory. And we come second on the team, 1 kill, 4.8k damage. The 734 assistance, the second class, the Confederate, the Sniper Medal for 1561 base XP. Pretty decent game there for the Type 61B on Fredfang. Show what it's capable of. You saw a bit of the gun handling there where it just decides, you know, I'm just going to miss. And you sit there going, but why? Why did you miss that? And yeah, it can be a little bit frustrating. But now we're on to the third replay. And this third replay, funny story, we end up starting the game 2 minutes in. And that's because my Xbox randomly stopped the game. I don't know why it did that. It booted me back to the main homepage. And then, so I came back into the game. And thankfully, I was still parked up next to a rock. And we had our friendly neighborhood tank defender, Xiveris, alongside us to actually defend us while we were coming back into the game, which was really quite funny. And thank you, Mr. Xiveris, for being the defender of my Type 61B. If you don't know who Xiveris is, go check out his channel. He streams on Twitch all the time. He's got a YouTube channel for where he posts his aces and stuff. I'll leave links in the description. Go sub and watch Xiveris because he's a great guy. So, yeah. Third replay. We came in pretty late. So we're just going to go charging into the enemy team to see what we can do, because I felt like, oh my lord, I'm loading into the game 2 minutes late. We feel like we might miss the action because Era 1 can go pretty quickly. Let's just go ham, get stuck in, and put ourselves in positions where we're not going to have to suffer the gun handling of this vehicle, where it just decides, you know what, I'm going to miss. And if we put ourselves in a fairly close proximity to the enemy vehicles, well, we can do that. And so we can use the 3.4k DPM that this vehicle gets, which is fantastic, and just try and eviscerate the enemy vehicles. So we got a couple of shots into the T-44A. Go for the RBRT shot into the Type 61B. Looking for a shot into his rear again as he moves along, which we do get in. But I'm not going to focus on those guys anymore. We're going to go after this T-44A. We get one shot into the back of him. Now, the T-44A has a bad turret traverse. So we're just going to get ourselves around this guy and just... poor T-44A, he's just getting abused. And we finish off that guy with a shot there, putting us on to 3k damage. Now IS-3M in front of us. We go for that tracking shot, and we ended up penning him and tracking him in place. And he got finished off, so we got a little bit of the assistance damage there. We get shot in the rear, which I was quite surprised about. It must have been a cheeky shot from that Type 61 from back there. Can't quite see it. And now there's a Object 165 coming in. It's like, hello, Mr. Object 165. So we put one shot in, go for another shot. The Batchat next to us, or the Shah 25T, I should say, is farming him up. And that means the 165 is focusing on that guy, and we get a shot in to finish him off. Again, we tracked him, because I knew that if he started to get farmed, we'd get all the tracking assist, and that's always a nice thing to go for. And especially if you can pin a tank in place and make it easier for your team to farm them, well, you're going to benefit, your team's going to benefit, it's always going to be a great time. So we're up to nearly 4,000 damage with that 1679 assistance. It's 9-5, so our team is winning quite handily at this point, and there's only 5 tanks left on the enemy team. 3 tanks that are spotted down at H3-4. The TD looked like he was charging down the ridge at H3. The 2 medium tanks are going to be directly in front of us, so I'm going to try and get above them and try and get shots down onto them from the hill above me. But in fact, that TD was a 4005, and he didn't charge down the hill. And at this point, I'm going, oh no, death. And unfortunately for me, like for many people in Era 1, a 4005 signals my death. And we finished with the victory. Still came top of the team. 2 kills, 4.2k damage, 1643 base XP. A pretty decent game there for the Type 61B on that map, which was Mannheim. And thank you, Mr. Xiveris, for being the defender of my tank. And we're finished with the 2 kills. Like I said, the 4.2, the 1600. A pretty nice game there for the Type 61B, where if you get that sort of game where you can rush in with your allies, just keep the DPM flowing, you can farm up pretty quickly. And we're on to the 4th and final replay of this video. And we're here on this map, which is Great Wall. And on Great Wall, what we're going to do is go towards the position at H3, go hull down, use the 10 degrees of gun depression this vehicle gets, limit the amount of tank that people have to see of me so that they can only really see my turret, because naturally if the whole tank is squishy and I make it so that they can't see most of the tank, there's a likelihood that they could miss shots, and that'll be quite handy for me. So, and if we've got 10 degrees of gun depression, we're just going to use the flexibility that does end up bringing us. So we see the 4005, he's coming up the hill. Hi, Mr. Light Tank. Your driving is as good as mine sometimes there. So he fires at the Char 40T and has missed. We've loaded HE because 45mm of penetration is not great, but it will go through a 4005 turret. And it will up our damage to 320, and it will really wreck some modules on this 4005. So we poke over, get the shot through for 324, and then we're just going to try and maneuver ourselves better on this ridge line to get a shot into him without him being able to get a shot into us in retaliation. To be quite frank, we don't want to take 183mm of pain. No one wants 183mm of pain. So we've managed to get 2 shots into that 4005, putting us onto 632 damage. Now there's an IS-4 directly in front of us. Firing AP is not going to go too well against this man, because 219 penetration is not going to go through. So we load the heat rounds. 320 pen on these heat rounds should help us dramatically at getting these shots in. So we're putting some shots into his lower plate, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm actually going to track this guy while he's coming over the ridge line. But it doesn't quite work out like that. He puts a shot into his damaging our engine. We're going to aim between the tracks there to make sure that the heat round just doesn't get absorbed. Now he's a one-shot. We go for the IBRT into his rear. And we should have aimed, because it misses. We have his rear again. The shot goes wide. Tracks him only. Does no damage, and he survives. But the Char 40T ends up... No, not the Char 40. Yeah, it was the Char 40T. He ended up finishing off the IS-4M. I got a bit confused there, because another Char 40T ended up dying. So we've got a Type 61B and a T44A directly in front of us, so we're going to try and farm these guys up. This, spoiler alert, this 268 next to me absolutely trashes the poor enemy team, which is not surprising, because the 268 when a 4005 is gone, a 268 can absolutely trash the enemy team quite easily, because that thing's crazy in Era 1. It's one of those slept-on tanks in Era 1, to be fair. We're at 2.5k damage with 102 assistance. There's an RU-251 behind me, so I'm going to try and get the RBRT shot in and then switch to HE. What I do is I switch to the HE before I manage to pull the trigger, like an absolute moron. I suck sometimes, alright? I really do. Because we ended up firing the HE round, we didn't even pen him, we should have aimed it, and we did 144 damage. Absolute wasted potential there, but there we go. Centurion 5-1 down below, we get a shot into his side. Tried to get another shot in, but I think the 268 ends up deleting him. We've got a whole team next to us, so I decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to go for the tracks if I can. We tried to track and pen the 4005, doesn't quite work out. Again, my team is coming down behind me, so we get the tracking shot into the Type 61B. He did 1,000 damage. He must have fired a HE round at that guy and did 1,100 damage, shut down the Type 61. It gave us all that lovely tracking assist. I'm going to try and go for that again on this T95E3. We get very fortunate, by the way, that we didn't take a hit from the 4005, but now we know he's fired, well, we're always taking him out. So we get the tracking shot in that tracks the 4005. I'm trying to keep him pinned in front of us. Damage his tracks again, and sadly, just before we get to the point where we can track him, his tracks get covered by the ridgeline. So instead, we're just going to keep shots flowing into that guy, and now I feel like he is reloaded. I'm not going to drive back out in front of his gun, because again, I don't want 183mm of pain. Speaking from experience, 183mm of pain is, well, you know, it's pain. So, we've got 4.6k damage now that guy's been shut down, 1,300 assistance. There's only 3 tanks left on the enemy team, and they are up at B0, and 2 tanks that we have absolutely no idea where they are. So we're going to try and get up on top of the hill and get to the position at F5 so we can try and get some shots across the valley and get shots into the heavy tank if we can. This is where having the powertrain might be a little bit nicer for the Type 61B, because just having that extra little bit of oomph in the engine can really mean quite a lot for your ability to get to positions early and also just get to better positions. Because if we were to put the powertrain on this vehicle, we still go at 57 kilometers an hour, which is pretty mobile, but we get an extra 30 horsepower, which is up to 18.23 horsepower per ton ratio, which means you're getting an extra, what, 0.4 horsepower per ton ratio? which can make a lot of difference. Not a tremendous amount, but just that little bit extra oomph that you go, ooh, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. And it also has the effect of meaning that you don't increase your track traverse with the traction system, which makes the tracks... Sometimes the tank feels like it turns very, very quickly with the traction system. It can be a little bit frustrating when you overturn, but there we go. So we got a shot into the T-34 that was across the way. Actually got lucky that it tracked him. We managed to finish him off, and we finished that game there with 4.9k damage, 1,306 assistance damage with the victory. Came second on the team, and yeah, like I say, that 268, he had a time. And yes, 9k with 8 kills. God damn, son. Fair play. But yeah, that's the Type 61 Mod B. Like I say, it's a tank that is, yeah, it's alright. It's nothing to shout home about. It's not terrible. It's just I found it super frustrating with how inconsistent this gun is. Because the gun, for saying it's supposed to be super accurate, misses some stupid shots. But then that happens a lot in Era 1 with quite a few tanks. It's that they're going, how did that miss? The accuracy generally in Era 1 can feel really wonky for saying you've got such accurate stats. And if you were to play with tanks in World War II that had that kind of accuracy stats, they'd never miss. But in Cold War Era 1, they do. It's just odd, but there we go. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!